My wife told me her dance lesson ended at 7, but when I pulled into the studio parking lot at 7:15 her car was still there, accompanied by only one other vehicle. A flashy red Mustang that screamed midlife crisis. I planned to surprise her, maybe take her out to dinner, a spontaneous bit of romance. 8 years of boxing had taught me that timing matters, but it also taught me to trust my instincts, and something about these private lessons she'd been taking for 3 months felt wrong. The studio's floor-to-ceiling windows looked out on the lot, and what I saw turned my blood to ice. She wasn't practicing steps. She was pressed against the instructor, his hands roaming where they had no business, her arms wrapped around his neck as she laughed at whatever trash he whispered. This wasn't a lesson. It was foreplay with music playing. I watched for 2 full minutes, long enough to know it wasn't a mistake, long enough to see her lean into every touch and encourage each whisper, long enough to understand my marriage had been a lie. The anger that rose in me wasn't wild and explosive, it was cold and calculated, the same clarity I felt in the ring when an opponent left an opening. I pushed through the front door. The bell chimed, but they didn't notice. I cleared my throat and they jumped apart like teenagers caught by parents. "Honey," she gasped, her face flushing. "What are you doing here?" The instructor, tall, lean, clearly convinced he was irresistible, looked at me with barely concealed annoyance, and then he smiled, which sealed his fate. "You must be the husband," he said, sizing me up like I was an obstacle to move. "I'm Antonio. Your wife's told me so much about you." I stepped forward. "Have you now?" I said. Antonio didn't flinch, which almost earned my respect. He kept going, his accent thick and affected. "Good thing she has somewhere to express herself artistically while you work long hours." My wife shot him a look that screamed, "Shut up," but Antonio was on a roll. "Dancing needs passion, you understand? Fire. She needs a real man who understands rhythm, not someone stiff, how you say, mechanical." That was his first mistake, talking about my wife like property, and his second was assuming I was mechanical. "You know what else needs timing and rhythm?" I asked, moving closer. "What's that?" he asked, smug and clueless. I showed him. 8 years of boxing taught me how to throw a perfect cross, how the hardest punches start with your legs, drive through your core, and explode through your fist. The sound his jaw made when my knuckles hit was like a branch snapping. Antonio dropped as if someone unplugged him, his head thudding against the hardwood. Blood pooled under his mouth immediately. My wife screamed. I flexed my fingers, checked for injury. "Clean hit. That's rhythm," I said, looking down at Antonio's unconscious body and timing. My wife was hyperventilating, her hands shaking as she knelt beside her precious instructor. "You're insane," she shrieked. "You could have killed him." "Could have," I agreed. "Didn't want to deal with paperwork." She pulled out her phone, probably calling 911. Good, I thought. Let them come and see what happens when someone disrespects me in front of my face. "This is assault," she screamed. "You're going to prison for this." I looked at her, seeing her clearly in a way 3 years of marriage hadn't allowed. She defended him instantly instead of showing concern for our marriage. She was already constructing a victim story. "No," I said calmly. "This is consequences." Antonio began to stir, groaning. His jaw was definitely broken, maybe his nose too. He'd be drinking through a straw for months. "You're a monster," my wife whispered through tears. "I'm a man who doesn't tolerate disrespect," I replied. "There's a difference." Sirens grew closer. "Hope your dance lessons were worth it," I told her as I headed for the door. "Because they just cost you everything. I have calls to make, plans to set in motion." Antonio thought he knew timing and rhythm. He was about to get a masterclass in both. The police arrived 15 minutes after I got home. I was on the front porch drinking a beer when 2 officers, one older, world-weary, one younger, eager, approached. "Sir, we need to ask you some questions about an incident at Riverside Dance Studio," the older cop said. "Antonio Martinez, right?" I stood slowly, hands visible. "Broke his jaw," I said. "Self-defense." Man was putting his hands on my wife without permission and making threatening comments about what she needs from a real man. I felt threatened. Not entirely true, but not entirely false. My phone buzzed, a text from my wife. "Coming home. We need to talk." 20 minutes later she walked through our front door like she owned the place, and behind her was a woman I'd never seen before. Probably a sister or friend. "This is Lisa, my attorney," she announced, lawyered up already, which told me everything I needed to know about her loyalties. The older officer warned them the investigation was ongoing. Lisa, brisk and professional, said her client had a right to document the dangerous environment I'd created, and my wife immediately started recording, thrusting the phone at me to capture me attacking an innocent man. That was their plan. Provoke me and film my reaction to prove my violent nature in any future divorce. I smiled into the camera. I defended my marriage from a predator who was sexually assaulting my wife, I said. Any husband would do the same. He wasn't assaulting me, she snapped. We were dancing with his hands on your body and his tongue in your ear. She turned crimson. Lisa shot her a warning look, but my wife kept going, "You're dangerous. Unstable. Look what you did to an innocent person." Innocent? I laughed. Lady, your client was caught cheating with a married man. That stopped everyone cold. What? Lisa asked. Antonio Martinez is married to Elena Martinez. She's been out of town on business for the past month, I said. Didn't you check? The attorney's face drained. My wife's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's not relevant, Lisa stammered at last. Adultery is still grounds for fault divorce in this state, I pointed out, especially with video evidence. Video evidence? My wife whispered. I pulled out my phone and played the recording I'd taken through the studio windows before I walked in. 30 seconds of my wife grinding against her instructor like a nightclub scene, crystal clear. The younger cop snorted, trying not to laugh. You're sick, my wife hissed. You recorded me without permission. I recorded my wife in a public space committing adultery, I said. Perfectly legal. Lisa whispered frantically, trying to control her client. Even if that's true, my wife pleaded, it doesn't give you the right to assault someone. Actually, I replied, in this state a spouse who catches a partner in adultery can claim temporary insanity or extreme emotional disturbance, which reduces assault charges significantly. I'd spent the last hour studying the law instead of wallowing. Antonio learned an important lesson about keeping his hands to himself, I continued. And you learned one about loyalty. Where am I supposed to go? She demanded, trying the victim role so hard it cracked. Try the hospital, I suggested. I'm sure Antonio could use the company. Call first to check visiting hours, whatever it is you two do together. The older cop cleared his throat. Sir, you'll need to come to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement. Of course, officer. After the officers left, my wife and her lawyer huddled on the driveway, plotting their next move, and I watched them argue through the window as Lisa shook her head and my wife pointed at the house, demanding her belongings. I texted my locksmith. New locks by morning. Then I made another call, the kind more important than lawyers or police. Elena Martinez answered on the third ring, her voice sharp and cutting like broken glass. Who is this? She demanded. Someone whose wife has been having an affair with your husband, I said. I thought you should know before you rushed to comfort him. There was a pause, then Elena said, Silence, then prove it. I liked her already, and I told her I had sent Antonio to the hospital with a broken jaw after catching them together. There was a note of approval in her voice. She told me she'd been in Chicago for 3 weeks on a business trip and had suspected something was off with late nights and mysterious calls. She'd been supporting Antonio for 2 years financially while his studio bled cash. Perfect. A broke, cheating instructor with gambling debts. After Elena hung up, I opened my laptop and started digging. Antonio's social pages were full of photos with young female students, always touching, always that predatory smile. His LinkedIn labeled him a professional dance instructor and wellness coach, an addition I hadn't seen before. 3 Google reviews mentioned inappropriate behavior during private sessions. The studio had replied each time to claim policy violations and remove the reviews. I screenshot everything before it vanished. My wife's next text threatened the locks be changed back by morning or she'd call the police again. I replied, Call them. Explain why you need to get into a house you abandoned to cheat. She shot back. I never abandoned anything. You attacked an innocent man. Innocent men don't whisper about what your wife needs from a real man while grabbing her body. You're twisting everything. I'm recording everything. That shut her up. Around midnight I drove past the hospital. Her car had been there for 4 hours, so I photographed the license plate with a timestamp and location. At home I printed bank statements, credit card bills, and phone records. 3 months of odd activity. Charges at restaurants I'd never visited, hotel stays during supposed shopping trips, calls to unfamiliar numbers. Antonio's number appeared 47 times in the last month. I organized it all into a folder marked evidence in case this went to court. My phone rang at 2 a.m. Elena changed her flight. She landed at 3 p.m. the next day and wanted to see for herself whether her husband was really injured or playing victim while my wife played nurse. If you find them together, she warned, Antonio will learn what real consequences look like. I told her to bring her phone and document everything. She agreed and said surprise would be best. "You sound like you know what you're doing," she said. 8 years of boxing teaches you strategy. Sometimes the best punch is the one they never see coming. I liked her immediately. Elena was smart, angry, and done with lies. After we hung up, I reviewed my wife's social posts. Cryptic messages about surviving abuse and finding strength in dark times. The usual victim playing for sympathy. I screenshot those too. Potential defamation evidence. Tomorrow would be interesting. Elena would discover the truth about her husband. My wife would discover that playing victim only works if people believe you're innocent. Antonio would learn broken jaws heal, but broken trust destroys everything. I set my alarm for noon to be awake when Elena landed. Some fights are won with fists, others by letting opponents destroy themselves. Elena's flight touched down at 3:17 p.m. and she texted from the airport, "On my way to the hospital. This better be worth the early flight home." It would be. I parked at a coffee shop across from the hospital and waited. At 4:30, Elena's black BMW slid into the lot and she sat a full minute, gathering herself. My phone rang. "I'm here," she texted. "Room 314. Orthopedic wing. I called earlier, pretending to be family." How did she know that? I told her I called the hospital pretending to be a brother checking on his condition. Amazing what they'll tell you when you pose as family. Elena laughed without humor. "You're thorough. I'm motivated. Wish me luck." "You won't need it," I said. "You've got truth on your side." 25 minutes later, my phone blew up with messages. "Elena, holy, Elena, you were right." And then photos. The first showed my wife on a small stool beside Antonio's hospital bed, a basin of water at her feet, gently washing his face with a washcloth. Her other hand stroked his arm. The second image, from another angle, caught her leaning over him, whispering into his ear while dabbing his swollen jaw. The third photo captured the moment Elena walked into the room. My wife's face was absolute terror. Antonio looked haunted, and Elena looked like someone whose every suspicion had been confirmed. My phone rang. I walked into the room and found my wife giving Antonio a sponge bath as if they were married. Elena, voice shaking with rage, sat right next to him holding his hand. When my wife saw me, she tried to pass as a concerned friend. "What did you say?" Elena demanded. I introduced myself as his wife and asked how long she'd been sleeping with my husband. I laughed out loud at the sight of her, and she went white, stuttering about a misunderstanding. Antonio tried to speak, but his jaw was wired shut so he could only mumble. "Did you get it all on video?" Elena asked. Every second of my wife's attempts to explain that she was merely helping a friend had been recorded. She insisted he was attacked by a crazy, violent husband. So why is a married woman giving intimate care to a married man instead of letting nurses do their job? I asked, a sharp, smart question she couldn't answer. She kept repeating that I didn't understand. I told her I understood perfectly. She was a home wrecker who helped destroy my marriage. She was now playing nurse to my cheating husband while I was out working to pay off his debts, and Elena was incandescent with righteous fury. This was even better than I dared hope. What happened next? Antonio reached to take her hand, as if to comfort her instead of me, and that was the moment I snapped. I didn't lay a hand on her, Elena clarified. I'm not stupid. I stepped right up to her face and told her exactly what I thought of women who prey on other people's marriages. I told her husband was a real man who defended what belonged to him, and that she was nothing but a pathetic cheat who ruined everything she touched. How did she react? She started crying, instantly switching into a victim performance, claiming she was scared and confused and only trying to help someone injured because of my husband's violence. Classic manipulation. Antonio made some muffled sounds and tried to gesture for me to calm down, like he was protecting her from his supposedly violent wife. That's when I took more pictures of the two of them together and told them both I would file for divorce in the morning. Both of them. Your wife's going to be named in my divorce papers as the other woman, I said, along with a lawsuit for alienation of affection. I didn't know Elena could pursue that kind of suit, but it sounded devastating. There's more, Elena continued. After I left the room, I went to the nurse's station and asked how long the woman in room 314 had been there and whether she was family. What did they say? They told me she's been there every day since he was admitted, bringing food and personal items and staying long past visiting hours. The nurses assumed she was his wife because of how she behaved with him. Perfect documentary evidence of their relationship, I said. Elena corrected me. I'm furious, but I'm done being naive. I called my lawyer from the parking lot. By tomorrow morning, Antonio's going to learn that the woman who supported his dreams is about to take everything he believes he owns. What about my wife? She asked. She's all yours, I said, but she will have explaining to do when my lawyer asks how long this affair has been going on. After Elena hung up, I sat in the coffee shop and processed it all. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was playing house with another woman's husband while that woman worked to support them both. Her attempt to manipulate the police had failed, her victim story was unraveling, and now she had Elena Martinez as an enemy. A woman with resources, legal counsel, and photographs. My phone buzzed. A text from my wife. "We need to talk." "This has gone too far," she typed. I replied, "Talk to Elena Martinez. She has plenty to say about you." 3 little dots appeared, vanished, reappeared. "Who is Elena Martinez?" she asked. So I sent her one of Elena's photos, the one of my wife tenderly washing Antonio's face. "Antonio's wife," I wrote. "The one who has been paying for his dance studio while you two played house." 10 minutes passed with no reply. "Then you don't understand," she wrote. "I understand perfectly," I answered. "You're not just a cheater. You're a homewrecker." "It's not what it looks like," she pleaded. "Elena has 47 photos that say otherwise." I told her. "I'm scared. I need to come home," she begged. "Home is wherever Elena decides not to press additional charges," I replied. For the first time since this began, she sounded truly afraid. "Good," I answered. "You made your choice. Live with the consequences." Elena called at 6 the next morning. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "I kept thinking about yesterday, so I came back to the hospital early to catch them before visiting hours and see if she'd sneak in. I was already reaching for my coffee." "She's been here since 5:30, the security guard said. "She brought him breakfast from that expensive downtown place, the one with $30 omelets. My wife was spending money we didn't have on gourmet food for her lover while I was facing the fallout of possible assault charges." "Elena, are you still there?" "Parking garage. 3rd floor. I can see his window from here." "What are you planning?" "I'm done planning," she said. "Time for action." The line went dead. 20 minutes later my phone lit up with notifications. Elena was live streaming what was happening. The first clip showed my wife in Antonio's hospital room, but now she wasn't just washing his face. She was feeding him spoonfuls of scrambled eggs, wiping his mouth, stroking his hair like a devoted girlfriend, caring for her injured lover. The second video caught Elena walking into the room. Even through the screen you could feel the temperature drop. "Good morning, sweetheart," Elena said sweetly but poisonous. "Don't mind me. I just wanted to check on my husband's recovery." My wife froze mid-spoonful and started. "I can explain." "Please do," Elena said, moving closer. "Explain why you're hand-feeding my husband like he's an infant. Explain why you're here at dawn spending what looks like $100 on breakfast for a man who isn't your husband." Antonio tried to speak through his wired jaw, making pathetic mumbles. "Don't try to talk, baby," Elena mocked. "Save your strength. You'll need it." The third clip was chaos. My wife sprang up, knocking over the chair. "This isn't what you think," she cried. Elena pulled out her phone and showed the photos from yesterday. "Because what I think," Elena said, "is that you're a pathetic woman who destroys other people's marriages while playing house with their husbands." "I was just helping someone who got hurt because of my husband's violence," my wife protested. "The wrong thing to say." Elena stepped forward. "Violence? Your husband defended his marriage from a predator. My husband destroyed our family by cheating with a married woman. There's a difference." My wife backed toward the door, but Elena pressed on. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I'd stay in Chicago forever while you played house with my husband? It's not like that," my wife stammered. "What is it like?" Elena's voice rose. "Explain why you've been here every day. Why you know his meal preferences. Why the nurses think you're his wife. Why you're feeding him with your hands like he's your lover." Antonio made frantic noises, likely trying to calm things, but his wired jaw made him sound pitiful. My wife tried. He needed help. He needed weekly care. Elena's laugh was terrifying. "He needed help cheating on his wife," she spat. "He needed help destroying your marriage. He needed help lying to both of us for months." The fourth video showed Elena in my wife's face. "You want to know what he really needed help with? Gambling debts," she said. $23,000 he owes to people who break more than jaws. Money I've been earning while he taught you special dance moves." My wife's face drained of color. She clearly didn't know about the gambling. "That's right, honey," Elena said. "Your nights in dancing shoes have been funded by both of us. My money, your body, and anyone else he could get his hands on." Elena produced a folder. "I spent yesterday with my lawyer. Guess what we found?" 3 other women filed complaints about inappropriate behavior during private lessons. 3 other married women who suddenly started evening classes with Antonio. My wife looked sick. "Congratulations," Elena continued. "You're not special. You're not his soulmate. You're just another mark he was running while blowing through my money and wrecking my marriage." Antonio made desperate sounds and reached toward my wife as if to comfort her. That's when Elena snapped. "Don't you dare comfort her." She grabbed the breakfast tray and hurled it at the wall. Eggs and coffee splattered everywhere. Nurses rushed in. Security was called. My wife was sobbing and shaking, but Elena wasn't done. "This is who you destroyed your marriage for," she told my wife, pointing at Antonio cowering in his hospital bed. "A broke, cheating gambling addict who'd been using you just like he used me. I hope it was worth it." The final video showed Elena walking out, calm, while my wife collapsed into a chair, distraught. Security escorted Elena out, but she'd already gotten what she came for. My phone rang immediately. "Did you see all of that?" Elena asked. "Every second. You destroyed her," she said. "She destroyed herself. I just showed her the truth about the man she gave everything to." What happens now? Now she has to explain to everyone why she abandoned a man who defended her honor for a con artist who was playing her from day one. She must explain why she chose a gambling addict over a husband who actually loved her. Antonio gets to explain to his loan sharks where their money will come from now that his meal ticket is divorcing him. He gets to explain to the state medical board why he used his business to prey on married women. And he gets to do all that with a broken jaw. Elena paused. "Your wife's gathering her things. She looks shattered. I almost feel sorry for her," she admitted. "Almost. Then I remember she was feeding my husband breakfast while I worked 12-hour days to pay his debts. Pity's gone," Elena said. Through the phone I could hear my wife begging nurses if there was anywhere else she could go. Elena continued. "Apparently she can't go home because her husband changed the locks, and she can't afford a hotel because she spent her money on gourmet breakfast for my husband. Where's she going to go? Not my problem anymore. I'm guessing she's about to learn. What happens when you burn all your bridges for a man who was never worth it?" 6 months later I was having coffee at the same shop across from the hospital when Elena texted. "Thought you'd want an update. Antonio's loan sharks found him last week. 3 broken ribs to go with his jaw. And my ex-wife, living with her mother, lost her job after the scandal went public. Turns out her boss didn't like employees who made the company look bad. The divorce was swift, no contest, with all of Elena's evidence. My ex-wife couldn't afford to fight. She's still blaming you for everything," Elena relayed. "Last I heard she was telling people you ruined her life with your violence. People will believe that. Hard to play victim when there's video of you hand-feeding another woman's husband in a hospital room," Elena added. She'd made sure those videos circulated widely. Social media, neighborhood groups, even copies sent to my ex-wife's family. The court of public opinion had handed down its verdict. What about the gambling debts? $23,000 became $40,000 with interest. Antonio had to sell the studio. Elena Martinez received half the business in the divorce settlement. The other half went to his creditors. My ex-wife had chosen a man with nothing to offer and no future. She tried to contact me last month. I told Elena she wanted to apologize. "What did you say?" "Nothing," Elena told me. I blocked her number. There was nothing to discuss. She'd made her choice when she let another man's hands be worth more than our vows. "Any regrets about defending myself?" Elena asked. "None," I said. "Good," she replied. Real men don't apologize for having standards. Elena and I had become friends through the chaos. She moved back to Chicago, got promoted, and started dating a decent man who actually respected marriage. "Your ex-wife asks about you sometimes," Elena said through mutual friends. "What does she want to know? If you're seeing anyone, if you're happy, if you ever talk about her. What do you tell them? That you moved on, that you're living life on your terms, that you don't waste time thinking about people who betrayed you." It was true. I bought a new house, started competing in amateur boxing again, and reconnected with friends I'd neglected during the marriage. Elena said my ex-wife told people she made a mistake, that she was confused and scared and didn't know what she was doing. She knew exactly what she was doing. She got caught. That's what I tell people too. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Antonio Martinez had been arrested for fraud. He'd been forging documents to keep the studio afloat longer than anyone knew. "Did you see the news?" Elena texted. "Just now," I replied. "How long do you think he'll get?" 3 to 5 years if he's lucky," she said. The gambling debts were one thing, but fraud is federal. My ex-wife had destroyed our marriage for a con man now heading to prison. The irony was immaculate. "She's going to be alone for a long time," Elena observed. She chose solitude the minute she let another man put his hands on her. Any chance you'd ever forgive her? Forgiveness is for people who are truly sorry, not for those sorry they got caught, I answered. Smart man, Elena said. Your next wife's going to be very lucky. If there is a next wife, she'll know exactly where I stand on loyalty and respect. Elena sent one final message. Your ex-wife destroyed everything good in her life for a man who used her. You lost a cheater and gained your self-respect back. Who really won? I looked at my reflection in the coffee shop window. Clear eyes, square shoulders, no regrets. The answer was obvious. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've picked 2 other videos I think you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon. You said. Generate white heavy checkmark 5 highly click-worthy YouTube video titles for a story about spousal infidelity. The titles must be 100% original and plagiarism-free. They should be suspenseful, emotionally charged, and highlight core conflicts like betrayal, secret-keeping, and revenge. Incorporate provocative and sexy wording where appropriate to create drama and excitement, ensuring they comply with YouTube's policy. Include a short, impactful subtitle and a one-line hook for each title that teases the shocking emotional core of the story. ChatGPT said, here are 5 highly click-worthy YouTube video titles with subtitles plus hooks, crafted for maximum suspense, emotional charge, and algorithmic appeal while staying 100% original and policy-safe. 1. She played nurse to my husband, until I caught them. Subtitle: a secret affair exposed in the most humiliating way. Hook: what happens when betrayal is uncovered in a hospital room? 2. My wife fed another man breakfast in bed, and I filmed it. Subtitle: the shocking truth behind a forbidden romance. Hook: when lies taste sweeter than loyalty, someone always pays the price. 3. Caught between the sheets of deception. Subtitle: a scandalous affair turns deadly serious. Hook: she thought her secret was safe, until the evidence went public. 4. The other woman didn't know I was watching. Subtitle: betrayal, revenge, and the brutal collapse of trust. Hook: one wife's fury turns a hidden romance into a public reckoning. 5. She destroyed our marriage for a man with nothing. Subtitle: infidelity, manipulation, and a shocking downfall. Hook: she gambled everything for love, and lost it all in disgrace. Do you want me to tune these titles more toward sexy scandal appeal, seductive wording, steamy undertones, or toward revenge and courtroom drama appeal, lawsuits, exposure, consequences?